Well, hello everybody. How are you? First order of business. Can you hear me? Chat real quick whether there's actually audio coming through on this thing. If you would. Okay, thank you. Thank you. And let's see who we got here. Holy cow, we got 31 people. You know, I did these drone live streams for 3 years, 2 a week. And I would come on live and there would be one person waiting, 2 people waiting. Right now we got 34 watching, which for me that's a crowd. So thanks, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Well, I'm Mitch. You all know that, and I have no idea what we're going to do tonight. I have the chat visible in front of me. One thing you'll notice about me is I'm moving around a lot. I'm looking this way. I'm looking that way. I got monitors, as you saw, all over the place. I'm like a one-arm paper hanger here. I don't have any kind of a moderator. I don't have any kind of a producer. I don't have anybody to help me out with this stuff. And I used to be pretty good at pushing all these buttons and making it look not professional, but semi-professional anyway. And the last live stream I did was a year ago. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do this tonight was I love this format. I love this format of asking questions and getting them answered. My fingers are getting numb from typing responses to all the comments that you people left, and I love it. I mean, I love it, but I get a little notification pop up on my cell phone every 3 seconds with a red dot, and I go in and see who's commenting, and I, if nothing else, at least try to leave a heart on it to let you know that that I have read it. And I want to continue to do that as long as I can. Now, nobody's more surprised than I at the reception that I've got, how fast this thing is just taken off. I mean, I've heard stories about this on YouTube, but I had no idea. I went over 6,000 subscribers about an hour ago, and I just hit 5,000 yesterday. So that's 1,000 more subscribers in one day. I don't have any idea where this thing is gone. The amount of views I'm getting are just heartwarming. I'm trying to find my footing, and I hope you'll notice that the videos that I am putting out now and that I'm making are starting to develop into a certain pattern of editing and I've been experimenting and see what works, what doesn't work. So I'll keep it up. I'll keep it up. Before I start much of anything, I want to give you my disclaimer. Unfortunately, we're in that kind of a world. I have to give you a disclaimer, and I have to be very careful on YouTube. There can be serious liability if somebody were to look at me as though I actually was a doctor or some kind of expert with 37 degrees behind my name, and mistake maybe something I casually mentioned and say that I think this, in my opinion, that. Well, we have a very litigious society these days. So all of us on YouTube have to be very, very careful. I will not mention the name of the disease that caused us to have lockdowns. YouTube has very strict policies about some of this stuff. They'll just delete somebody's channel if they think they're putting out misinformation. And that's where the rub is. Misinformation in whose opinion? And unfortunately, the kids that are working in YouTube are generally not well informed. They are informed by all propaganda about virtually everything, including eating meat. See, when I come on here and start talking about eating meat, there are people in this world that think that I'm giving absolutely deadly advice and somebody should, find out where I live and kill me. And some of the big influencers like, John Baker and, Ken Berry, Anthony Chafee, these guys have had death threats. So I have to be very, very, very careful. So I am not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. I did not stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. I'm glad I'm not a doctor. I'm glad that I never went to medical school because that was my original idea, was to go to medical school. And I'm glad I didn't, because in medical school, the curriculum teaches you all the propaganda that we're finding out is wrong, all the information about nutrition that's wrong, diet information that's based on fraudulent tests, corruption, greed, cronyism, religion, and everything. But what makes real sense, and what makes sense is just so simple. It's just so simple. And that is, up until a short period of time ago in history, our ancestors were meat eaters. We're carnivores. Sorry, I can't apologize for that. That's just what happened. And through experimenting myself and my own N of 1 experiment, I've proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is magic for the human body compared to what the general nutrition advice is. It's absolutely magic. So as a disclaimer, I can't. Even if I know the answer, even if you ask me, for example, my blood test is like this and I got this result, and I know better than any doctor could know exactly what that means, exactly what you should do, I cannot tell you, give you advice, or put it in writing in a comment or an email to me and play doctor. I'm not a doctor. Ken Berry is a doctor. He's qualified, more than qualified, to answer any of those medical questions that he gets on his show. He goes out of his way many times during the show. He and Nisha both go out of their way to say, this is not medical advice. This is my opinion. So you're going to hear that at the beginning of every live stream that I have. I'm really sorry, but I'm having the chat's running by, and I just can't read it now as fast as it's running by, and talk and keep my train of thought. I don't know if that's an old man thing, but I think that's just a human thing. I'm glancing over the comments, and it's great. This is just great. And I'm not nervous at all. You guys have made me feel like I'm a friend based on your comments, and I appreciate that. And I've done something that I never thought that I would do. I've always been a very private person. I've never shared much of my life with anybody. And yet here I am, putting pictures of me with my shirt off on the thumbnails. I had a chuckle this morning. I woke up with a thought popped into my head, and that thought was, did you ever think 50,000 people would know what your kitchen looks like? I mean, how many of you people have had 50,000 people see your kitchen or some of your house? And I just made the decision when I started this thing that I'm just going to put it out there. I have no secrets from any of you guys. And one of the big reasons that I want to start doing these live streams is because I record these videos. I try not to make them scripted, but sometimes you have to script them. And if you just go off the cuff, like I'm doing now, where you just speak, I do much better. Because if I script things, I end up watching the video afterwards and saying things like, oh God, I should have said this there. I should have made that point there. I should have I should have done this, I should have done that, and, it's hard. So in a live stream type of format, uh, like this, uh, especially when I actually bring some people in to have a conversation, oh, look, one second. Brad Alston, some of my drone buddies are in the chat. "Hey, how you doing, guys? Good to see you." That makes me happy. I see the drone guys. God, look at them all. Adrian is here, Michael's Drones. I guess they're not all too mad at me for giving up on the drone thing, but, I like my new carnivore community. One of the things that has been on my mind is I'm out there spouting out a lot of advice based on my own theories and concepts. Uh, None of you know me. Uh, None of you know whether I have any brain power whatsoever or any insight whatsoever. You don't know my history. You don't know my background. You certainly don't know what my education is or my experience. And I know when I watch somebody, my father told me when I was young, he said, no matter what you hear, he said, no matter what you hear, consider the source. And that's probably some of the best advice that I have ever gotten in my life. Consider the source. And that reminds me of an old Buddy Hackett joke. Buddy Hackett is in Las Vegas. He's losing his pants at the craps tables. He goes into the men's room and he saddles up in a urinal next to some other guy. And this guy starts giving him gambling advice. He's telling him, well, listen, if you lose, you double down. And then if you lose again, you keep doubling down. And when you win back everything you lost. And Buddy Hackett's listening and going, uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. And he looks over at the guy. The guy is dressed like a homeless guy. His shoes are falling apart. And Buddy Hackett says, yeah, and I'm taking gambling advice from this guy. And that's the point I'm trying to make. You don't know me. So I want you to know where I came up with all this stuff and how and what my background is. And over the course of time, I'll let a little bit of my history out of the bag. But there was one thing that I wanted to just show you tonight. And maybe this will give you some insight as to why this lunatic brain of mine never shuts down, never stops. I think constantly from the time I wake up in the morning until the time I go to bed, trying to figure out how things work and why and how did it get this way. I've been like that since I was a little kid. I did moderately in school because it bored me. Everything I've learned in my life, I have learned on my own. And everything I've learned, I compare up to what I have as my version of actual reality and truth. And it either fits in that picture that I have, or I can come up with a reason why it doesn't fit. Uh, Things that I've believed 30, 40 years ago, I still believe today. Yet, and this is the important part for me in life. Yet, if something that was one of my core beliefs, something that I held, that I have been convinced is absolutely right, it couldn't be the other way. If some evidence comes along that shows me where I made a mistake, it'll take me a millisecond to go, oh, I was wrong. Sorry. And I will change my belief. And I can do that. See, I can do that because I have nothing vested in anything that I believe. Not a reputation, not an income, not even pride. I want to be right. I've always been that way. I want to be right. So I want to show you one thing today, and we might get more into this down the road if you're interested. And I certainly don't want to bore the pants off you guys, but I want you to know where all this stuff is coming from. when I do a rant or I talk about something, it's not something I just thought about yesterday. It's something that I've been building in my mind for over 50 years as my real version of how things are, where it all came from, why it works the way it does, why as humans we behave the way we do. And 20 years ago, on my 55th birthday, I was in the computer business at the time. I was very, very successful. And I had all of this stuff, and I decided I was going to write a book. And this is my book. I read it once a year. I still can't believe I actually wrote it, but this is my book. It's called Taming, and I'm not selling it, and I don't want anybody to buy it. It is on Amazon. It's been on Amazon for 20 years. I've never got a dime royalty from it. Nobody cares about my book because they don't know me. It's irrelevant. The only thing is I'm proud that I wrote this thing. I'll give it away. I don't care. I don't think half the people in the world would understand what I wrote in it anyway. But it's called Taming the Beast Within. Think about that for a minute. And I don't know if you can see it, but there's a gorilla, dark gorilla, and you can see his eye gleaming right below the letter E in beast. Okay. And there's a lot of significance in that. So the premise of this book is that human behavior isn't accidental, that we humans are animals. We're no better than any other animals. In a lot of respects, we're inferior to a lot of animals, especially when it comes to the physical department. Or have you ever tried to swat a fly? I mean, those things, they can outperform you in a minute. But we evolved from the apes and the chimpanzees. And I know that a lot of religious people want to debate evolution versus creationism, and everybody's got to make up their own mind there. And far be it for me to want to change anybody's mind. I admire people of faith. I actually envy the comfort that it gives them. But my theory 20 years ago was we're, as humans, we're just not as advanced as we think we are. We're arrogant, we're egotistical. We think because we have a conscious mind that we actually have any control over what happens to us. And that's evident in human behavior. It's really, really evident in addictive behavior, because no matter how much you as a human being decide, I'm absolutely going to do this, I'm absolutely not going to do this. If the beast, if that animal mind that is 99% of your mind, it is the mind that evolved since the beginning of life on this planet. And if you think that you actually are in charge of what that mind is doing, you're deceiving yourself. This is my theory. A lot of people are going to disagree, and but I looked at my behavior. I wanted to know why I behaved. I wanted to know why I behaved the way I did. So I wrote this book, and the premise of the book was, and I outlined why people do different things and everything. And I talked about diet, and I talked about all kinds of stuff in that book. And the premise of the book was that until you learn what's really controlling your actions and accept that, you're not going to be able to deal with it. And that was 20 years ago. So when it came to addictions, my own addictions, and this is what brought me to this point, my own addictions, I couldn't understand. I'm a smart guy. I have willpower. I'm in control. Why do I find myself driving to the Walgreens drugstore at 3 o'clock in the morning because I woke up and I had to have ice cream and I never kept it in the house? Why? Why did I have to go there? So I tried to figure out what was driving me, what was driving that addiction that I couldn't handle. And one of the things that was driving it was I learned through studying a lot of physiology, reading tons of studies and biology books, and I've studied paleoanthropology, cellular biology. I know all that stuff. I can sit there and tell you molecule by molecule how your mitochondria make uh, ATP out of glycolysis. And I know that stuff. I don't want to talk about it because it just bores the hell out of people. But I understand the mechanisms. And I'm trying to figure out why I can't stay in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning and I find myself driving to a Walgreens. And then when I get to the Walgreens, I'm going to just get a pint. That's all. You know, one pint of ice cream can't hurt me. I'm on this keto diet. I've been pretty good for the past couple of weeks. I can have one pint of ice cream. So I go to Walgreens, and the first thing do I see 2 for 1. I said, oh, great, 2 for 1. Okay, can't pay. I got to get two of them. And then I look next to the 2 for 1, and what do I see but a half a gallon? And it's cheaper than the expensive stuff, the Ben and Jerry's. So I end up taking a half a gallon of ice cream home, and damn if I don't eat most of it. And there's something wrong with that. And I wanted to try to find out why. Why do I do that? I know better. And here's the thing that I noticed. Okay, I noticed that I could rationalize that behavior and make it acceptable to me. And we've all done that. Oh, listen, just I know I shouldn't, but just this one last time. And that's why I made that first video. I'll start the diet again on Monday because, you know, who among us hasn't said that 50 times? But I did notice one thing, and then I'll get back off of this subject. But I did notice one thing. And the one thing was every time after I ate that ice cream, everything changed. The cravings went away and were replaced with shame and guilt and anger. And I got pissed at myself and said, well, what was I thinking? You ever use that phrase, what was I thinking? So true fashion for me, I said, I will find out the mechanisms in the brain that are behind that phenomenon. Okay. The phenomenon of rationalizing your addictive behavior, performing the act that you don't want to perform, which is eating all that crap, and then the immediate feelings of guilt and shame afterwards. Something is happening chemically or hormonally in our brains. So I started looking at studies that they were doing about addiction, where they put people under PET scans. A PET scan is a brain scan, and it lights up when the cells metabolize glucose, which means they're doing some business. They're making energy. And interestingly enough, our frontal lobe here is where we live. It's where our conscious thought, our reasoning, our ration comes from. Over here on the sides, you've got the pleasure centers where dopamine and the serotonin and different hormones are active. And what they noticed was that when people were experiencing these cravings, the frontal lobe shut down. The brain, our animal brain, basically said, you know, if I let this stupid human think about this, he's not going to let me have what I want. So we're just going to shut that frontal lobe down, and the pleasure centers of the brain would light up. And then you could, so I said, why in the hell would there be a mechanism? How did that evolve? Was there a use for that? Because nothing with no use will evolve. Only things that help an organism survive are going to evolve into the next generations. Okay. And it dawned on me. that this is the fight or flight response. It is an offset of the mechanisms that evolved to shut off the conscious thought of a human when the situation he was about to engage in was a life or death situation, and not trying to overthink it was a benefit. And the time where this mechanism came into play generally was when they were chasing after mastodons with spears. A lot of them never came home from the hunt, but they were more successful. And we experience this same reaction today, uh, and we call it tunnel vision. If you've asked anybody that's ever taken any firearms training, they'll tell you that when a panic or a life-threatening situation comes in, your mind shuts off. You get tunnel vision. You can't think, you can't act. Everything from that point has to be instinctual. So I kind of thought that that probably is a very reasonable explanation for why we can't control these cravings. Our mind, our animal brain, it likes that dopamine. It likes that pleasure response. It wants that. That's important to it, as important as finding meat was to our long ago ancestors. So it shuts off our conscious thinking. It basically says, hey, Mitch, if I leave this up to you, we're not having any ice cream. So sorry. And the bad news is when you have the ice cream, your animal brain says, I feel good now. Back to you, Mitch. And it goes back to you, and you feel like hell, and you feel ashamed of yourself. And that's my theory. And I think that explains it. And I said all that as one example to show you how my mind works, where I come up with this stuff. Some of it might be right, some of it might be wrong, but nobody else is trying to explain that. And I'm just one of those guys. So I hope when you listen to me on a video and I tell you just a little tidbit of advice, like I did in the video of how to start the carnivore diet, where I came up with a couple of points that I thought were very, very, very important. Those points were I designed those points. I haven't heard them anywhere. I'm not a copycat, one of these guys. I talk about my own theories and my own thoughts. Uh, I told you for the first 30 days, don't get on the scale. Don't get on the scale because you're too focused on losing weight and nothing else, because that's what we're all in. That's what we're all basically started out as. We need to lose weight. And if you don't lose weight in 2 days, things happen in your brain that convince you this is futile. You're doing the wrong thing. And I know that it's going to take 30 days to make those physiological changes to your cellular respiration so that you can become a fat burner instead of a sugar burner. And during that 30 days, you have to not allow your brain to have any negative feedback. And that comes from stepping on the scale or allowing yourself to get hungry. And that's the second most important thing I told you. Never be far away from food that's ready to eat. And that is so important. And I'll tell you, I know that these things are important because this is how I was able to succeed on this. I came up with these rules for myself a year ago on carnivore, and I had a well thought out, biologically appropriate reason for each one of those because I was trying to outsmart this gorilla that lives inside of me. And it worked, and it worked, and it's continuing to work, and it's working better and better and better. And I'm living proof of it. And that's all I can offer is don't do just what I say. This is what happens when you do it. And I hope that will give some credibility to the stuff I put out because I remember my father's words. My father's words, consider the source, is one of the most important things that he ever told me. Consider the source. And if you don't know me, I wouldn't blame you if you didn't believe a word I said. And I hope that you will get to know me over time. I'm not going anywhere. I love this stuff. I love this stuff. I'm in my element in this stuff. In the drone community, I would do these live streams where I had 4 cameras in the studio. I had a workbench in there, and they would go for 3-4 hours, and I would build racing drones from scratch for all the people that were watching and answer their technical questions about how flight controllers worked. And I kind of got the nickname Professor Mitch. So I thought that was nice. I don't know if they were making fun of me or if they meant it, but they would call me Professor Mitch. I maybe could have been a professor. I could have been a doctor. I could have been anything, but I didn't. Okay, so that's just a little initial thing. A couple other little things about me that might be interesting for you to know is that I would say 15, 20 times in my life, I went up 40, 50 pounds and down 40, 50 pounds, up 40, 50 pounds, down 40, 50 pounds, up and down. I was always successful on a diet. And within months after I even got somewhat close to my goal weight, my animal brain decided I had to have just a little bit, just this once, up 50 pounds again. I've been yo-yoing all my life. Because I've been low carb most of my life, I've been relatively healthy. I never had a sugar problem. My A1C is 4.9. I've always had high cholesterol because I think I'm maybe one of these lean mass hyper responders that Dave Feldman talks about, because my cholesterol is up there with Ken Berry's in the high 200s, my LDL. My doctor has a heart attack every time I go in the office, but I'm not having the heart attack. I've had scans, I've had ultrasounds, I have no blocked arteries. I kept telling her, I said, I don't care what my cholesterol is because I have no damage. I have no heart disease. Why do you suppose that is? Come to find out, this whole cholesterol thing could very well be a fraud and a hoax. Now they're finding out that the people with the highest cholesterol live the longest. Who knew? And yet they won't change their mind. There's too much invested in it. See, they can't change their mind if they find out they're wrong, because their careers, their reputations, their companies, their corporations, the drug companies and the food companies, they can't change. Oh, they might bury a little, we were wrong, sorry, on page 700 of some report somewhere, but nobody ever gets to see it. And you certainly don't see it on CNN, who happens to make hundreds of millions of dollars from the sponsorships of these food and drug companies. So it's a big, good old boys club, and there's really nothing you can do about it. But I've been up and down, up and down, up and down. Even though I was relatively healthy, as I got older, I started developing things going wrong with me. I got kidney stones. I've been hospitalized twice because I couldn't pass a kidney stone. I don't know if any of you have ever had those, but I never had pain like that before. I ended up with 8 stones in my kidneys. The biggest one was 1.1 centimeters. They weren't moving around, but they were in there. I finally found out what caused all these kidney stones, and it's primarily oxalate. Okay, these oxalate stones that we eat, the high oxalate foods. I, like everybody else, was trying to eat healthy. I was eating all these superfoods like spinach and chocolate, almonds, the highest oxalate foods on the planet. And it wasn't until I stopped eating those things. My kidney stones are completely gone now. My last scan, I have no kidney stones anymore. I had fatty liver disease. I discovered my fatty liver disease from a CT scan of my kidneys, looking for kidney stones. And because while they're scanning your kidneys, they scan a lot of other stuff that happens to be in the neighborhood, and they write up their radiologist report and they put it in there. Sure enough, I'm reading over my radiologist report and it says mild to moderate fatty liver disease. I didn't even know what that was. So I looked it up and found out Now I know exactly what causes it, generally too much fructose in the diet, uh, but who knew? Who knew? That scared me, okay, and that's one of the things that drove me to keto, to really strict keto a few years ago. Um, I've, I had eczema, I had, high blood pressure, I was on 2 different blood pressure medications, and it was hard to control. My blood pressure now is like 110/65. I take it about once a week because I don't even worry about it anymore, but I still take it. I still check it. No meds, no nothing. Um, my my gut, and I don't really wanna get into too much bathroom talk here, but my gut was so screwed up all my life that for 20 plus years, I was taking 4 of these colon cleanse capsules every day, which is senna, which is a laxative, just so I could actually go to the bathroom. I was so plugged up. I was always bloated. I was always miserable. It was terrible. Uh, and what was I doing? I was I was taking Metamucil. I was going out of my way to eat more fiber, and all that did was just make it worse. But who knew? This is what the experts were telling me. Even on keto, it never got right. It never got right. But I gotta tell you, it took a year on carnivore, but I have never had my digestive tract work so well as I do right now, eating just meat and nothing else. No fiber, no vegetables, no it's like eating wood. I joke, I say, "It's like eating the landscaping," you know what I mean? But, that straightened out. I, I had a malignant melanoma, cancer on my nose, so I suppose I could legally say, or morally say, I'm a cancer survivor because a malignant melanoma is deadly, and, I had a spot on my nose for like 20 years. It was brown. It just looked like a freckle, and I had been told by many doctors over the years and dermatologists that it was hyperpigmentation. Okay, so it's just like a freckle. One day I noticed it's starting to get really dark, kind of black looking, and I said, "Uh-oh." So I went to, a dermatologist, and he says, "That doesn't look good. Those are words you just don't wanna hear from a dermatologist." Well, God, I don't like the looks of that. And he took a biopsy of it, and about a week later, I get a phone call. "You've got a malignant melanoma on your nose. We need to get rid of it." So I went in, and, they need to it was right smack in the middle of my nose. They need to cut margins around those things. By the time they got done, he had cut about a nickel-sized piece of skin out, and here on my shoulder is a big scar where they harvested skin and grafted it onto my nose. So if you look real close, you can see the remnants of that patch right there in the center, and I don't have a gorgeous nose like I used to. But that was 6 years ago, and I go back to the dermatologist every 6 months, and he checks the lymph node, checks everything, I know, I mean, I know deep in my heart that being on this carnivore diet, any cancer in my body has the best chance of being defeated. So I don't even think about it anymore. I don't worry about it, but I had cancer. Okay, so I can add that to the list. 2 years ago, jock that I was trying to become, I'm on the keto diet, and I'm going to the gym, nothing like I do now, and nowhere near I hated it, but I decided I was gonna go, and I was probably at that point maybe 130 165, 170 pounds, and right now I weigh 140, so that was 30 pounds ago. And I work out like a bandit, and then I go into the sauna, and they keep the sauna at this gym at 170 degrees. I mean, it's hot in there, but that's good. And while I'm in the sauna, what do? But I get into a discussion with one of the other guys in the sauna about the keto diet. And if you haven't figured this out about me yet, is that once I start talking, uh, until I see the deer in the headlights look, I'm gonna keep talking probably. We talked and we talked and we talked and we talked, and people came and people went. I didn't even realize that I had been in there for like 45 minutes in this 170-degree sauna. Anyway, it's time for me to get up and leave, and I get really lightheaded. I said, and I've done that before. Everybody who has overdone it out in the, working out in the hot sun, gardening or whatever, or just sweated a lot, you don't think about it. I was obviously severely dehydrated at that point and low on electrolytes because I really hadn't come to terms with the importance of electrolytes as I believe now. And I was really lightheaded. I went over to my locker and I sat down on the bench. There's a wooden bench in front of the lockers. And I laid down. I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to pass out. And I lay there for about 5 minutes. The next thing I know, I'm in the emergency room. My son is next to me. They thought I had died. Evidently, I had tried to get up, passed out. On the way down, I hit my head back here. I hit my head on the bench, the corner of the bench, knocked myself unconscious completely. I was unconscious for an hour. I wake up in the emergency room to the news that I have a brain bleed, and they're very concerned, and that I might have to go down to Holmes Regional, which is the hospital here with a big neurology department. So they admitted me to the hospital. I stay overnight. They don't even do another CT scan on me the next morning. They just discharge me. So I go home. I'm happy. Good. Healed itself. Turned out to be nothing. My head hurts, but I'll be fine. So here I go about my business. Next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks, weird things start happening. I start having balance problems. I start having 1 minute or 2 minute episodes of aphasia. Can you imagine me unable to talk? I couldn't put words together, but they only lasted a couple of minutes. I was in my right side of my body. I was getting numbness. My hands would go completely numb. My right foot would go completely numb. It just kept getting worse and worse. And about 8 weeks after I hit my head, I was on the phone with my son, and I couldn't talk. I couldn't put words together. Scared the crap out of him. He came and got me and took me to one of the hospitals near me. And it so happens that he's on the board of directors of that hospital. So needless to say, I got the VIP treatment. But I was fine. I felt fine. I mean, these little attacks lasted a minute or two, but they were thinking that the symptoms are very stroke-like. So they wheel me in the hospital. They wheel me right into the CT scanner. They do a scan of my head. Next thing I know, I'm on a helicopter. I'm wide awake. I'm a pilot myself. I've been flying all my life. So I'm talking to the helicopter guys about airplanes and flying. I'm not even thinking about what's really happening to me. The hospital that they flew me to was 3 miles away from the hospital where I was in. So I took the world's shortest helicopter ride, and the bill for that helicopter ride turned out to be $21,000. Of which I had to pay a $250 deductible, so that was not too bad. I coulda jumped in my car and driven there. I really didn't feel that bad other than these little, the numbness and the little balance issues and the fact that I would have these short periods where I couldn't talk, aphasia, they call that. So they land on the roof of this hospital, they wheel me down to the 8th floor, which is the, intensive care unit. They check me in, and, long sto it's too late to make this long story short, but long story short, I'm gonna turn my head to the camera. I don't know if you can see, but this whole area of my skull had to be removed, and I had a subdural hematoma, which is a huge blood clot that was 2 centimeters thick, pressing on my brain on the left side, opposite from where I hit, because that's what happens. If you get hit on this side of your head, you're gonna have the injury on this side of your head because the brain whiplashes. So I actually had brain surgery, and I had a scar, it looked like a baseball, uh, seams on my head, and that was 2 years ago this month that I had that, and that is why I stopped doing the drone stuff because I it took me quite a while to regain the function, the balance that I had. That brain had to expand back into that area that was there, and to fully recover from that, it took a year, fully recover. I mean, I could go out and fly drones and all, but I was just, bad shape. I just didn't have the desire to do anything after that happened. So I almost basically took a year off of life because of that injury, and when I felt just completely fully recovered, uh, and I had gained a little weight during that period of time because I wasn't worried about, losing weight while I was recovering from brain surgery. Uh, a year later, I sat down and made the decision, "Okay, this is it, Mitch. You're 75 years old now. This is you got one more shot, basically. You can't be yo-yoing the rest of your life. You got one more shot to do the best you can for your health, if you wanna have a life free of pain and illness." And that's why I did it. Uh, I'm old enough that if I die now, I say, "Okay, I had a life, and I had a I had a roller coaster life too." But I said, "Do I wanna live to be 100? Do I wanna live to be 110? Hell yeah, as long as I don't suffer." And that's the key. And that was the motivation for me to do this. So I started the carnivore diet, and in that year, and it was a year ago, August 1st, I have not had 1 gram of carbs consciously other than what comes in an egg or what might be in a little strip of bacon, but inconsequential. I have not, and over that period of a year, what happened to me and the changes that happened to me without even trying to consciously effect these changes. The stuff that happened to me was the stuff of miracles. And that's what I'm talking about now. And that's why I felt that I really discovered something that others are skirting over and might know, but don't really deeply understand how profound the change in you will be when you nourish your body as it was meant to be nourished and stop eating the crap that poisons us. The changes go so far beyond just what happened to me physically, just being able to put on muscle like I am, it's crazy at my age. Uh, Having all my everything that was wrong with me, everything, even my eye floaters that I had, they're gone. My hair is getting darker. My eye prescription is getting better. My eyes are actually getting better. I had a cataract in my left eye. It is getting better. I have to get new glasses with a weaker prescription. It is crazy. I doubt I'll ever grow this back, but I don't care. Um, the changes to, and I tried to allude to this in a, in a video. I tried to allude to the lifestyle changes that I've made unconsciously. I mentioned that the only thing I did when I started this diet was just concentrate on just eating meat. I didn't think about exercise. I didn't think about anything else. I just decided if I'm gonna succeed on this, I just can't allow myself to be hungry and don't even think about weight and just get my chemistry right. And getting that chemistry right was where it all started because getting my chemistry right started affecting these changes in me, which manifested themselves as habits. An example of that, like I told you in the video, is that, when I decided to go back to the gym 6 months ago, I loved it. I hated the gym, but I loved the gym. I looked forward to it. It felt good. It made me feel powerful. Uh, I looked at foods that I would kill for before, and they looked unappetizing to me. Yet I'll dive headfirst into a bowl of bacon now, you know? I mean, it's crazy, and I didn't consciously set out to say, "I'm gonna start enjoying the gym," or "I'm gonna be offended or put off by these horrible foods I used to love." It happened all by itself. My mental clarity has improved by an order of magnitude, not only in the way I think, but the way I can even put together thoughts, make points, uh, which is something that I was losing, and now I'm able to draw on it, like just like right now, I have no script here, I'm just talking. But this is a miracle as far as I'm concerned, but it is a scientifically explainable miracle of chemistry and biology, and it's basically letting the animal live to its full potential because it has every little building block, every little amino acid, every little vitamin and mineral that it needs, where it needs it to do the job that it's trying to do. And you get rewarded with a sense of freedom from something that has been nagging at us our whole lives, and that is you check out of society's total and complete preoccupation with food as their sole source of contentment and pleasure. And when you look around and you see how the world lives, everything is only about stuffing their face. Every social event, every thought, uh, when you hear a whole whatever, you know, the YouTube videos with recipes are just crazy. Uh, when basically what'll happen to you when you actually get into this is that your tastes will become simpler. Variety in food will become just a hassle instead of, "Ooh, I heard there's a new restaurant open down the street, and I heard they got great food, and I heard that, you know, this dish is fabulous and that dish is," and I'm really in the mood for something different. I'm bored with the same old food. I just need to eat something different, need to have more excitement, more experiences, and it's all based around food. And uh, we are, as a society, addicted beyond the point where we even realize it anymore. Me, I'm going the other way, and I'm not even conscious about going the other way. My son stopped by to see me in the house today, and he looks at me and he says, "Do you eat cheese?" I said, "Well, I did." And as in fact, if you remember that, if you went along on my kitchen tour, you noticed there was a brick of cheddar in the refrigerator, which I hadn't opened yet. I gave it to him. I said, "Here, take this, eat it." I don't want it anymore. I have settled into the simplicity of 5 or 6 different foods, and that's it. And the rest of the way I cook them is, you know, just 1, 2, 3, done. Uh, I love it, and I've never been so content with the food I'm eating. And interestingly enough, I could if I don't even think about it. If I you know, I might get to 5 o'clock if I'm busy one day and say, "Oh, didn't eat today. Ah, I'll eat tomorrow." I never thought that was possible. That's living in a primal manner. That's the way our ancestors lived. They didn't have restaurants, they didn't have choices, they didn't have televisions, they had meat, and occasionally they had some grubby vegetables and maybe some berries when they were in season, but they didn't think about, "Oh, I'm bored with this meat. I can't eat any more of this meat." That was their food. That's what they ate, and they enjoyed it when they ate it, and they enjoyed it because they had to eat it. So, if it was enjoyable, it promoted the eating of it. That was an evolutionary trait that passed on and passed on and passed on. So, it happens to you. I wanna try to get that message out there, and I think I will. I got a long time yet. I hope that 25 years from now, when I'm 100 years old, that I'm still sitting in front of a TV screen somewhere or making YouTube videos and talking about the 100-year-old guy that's still gone to the gym and everything. So we'll see what happens. Okay, enough. I just wanted to do that. I'm not gonna do that much. I wanted to do that in this first live stream to tell you, you're not listening to an old fool. Everybody thinks when you get old in this world that you become stupid for some reason. There's an old saying I used to enjoy, and that was that, you know, the older my kids get, the smarter I become. There's a lot there's a lot to that. You know, when you're young, you think you know it all. So, I hope when you listen to me, you'll say, "You know, maybe this guy has half a brain." And I do. I mean, the part I had grew back, so I think I have my whole brain up there. And I have the experience, and I'm trying to lead by example. I don't wanna be one of these do as I say, don't do as I do, do as I say kind of guys. I remember sitting in front of the fat doctors when I was younger with they're sitting there smoking cigarettes telling me how to be healthy. You don't realize the absurdity of that until you think about it years later. Okay, let's go to the chat here. Oh, God, we're talking about the Randall cycle. Oh, God. Okay, I don't see any questions. If anybody wants to ask me anything, I know it's good to see you're all chatting amongst yourselves. I like that. That's good. If anybody wants to ask me a question at this point, go ahead and type the word question first in like capital letters, and then ask me a question, and I'll try to answer it. I see Mel Koch, one of my old drone buddies, is in the chat. How you doing, Mel? Long time, buddy. Haven't seen you in a long time. It's good to see some names that I recognized. God, I got 133 people. Wow. Do you know that the most I ever drew at any live stream in the drone business was like 27 people at once. There's my buddy Carlos back from the sky. Back from the sky. His name is Carlos. And Carlos is a friend of mine that used to be kind of like my sidekick and moderator in most of these live streams. And we talk on the phone, and I wanted to do this live stream solo. I'm just curious to see if anybody cared, if anybody wanted to even listen to me, uh, whether we get questions. Here's a question, time traveler. What's with the open French door? Um, well, I'm doing this thing on a computer, and that's a graphic in a studio. I can here. That's me. I'm sitting at all of this stuff, and I can make the backgrounds in that studio look like whatever I want, and I kinda like that background with the brick wall, and then I put a video of that I shot outside my house here of some trees blowing in the wind, and I kinda like that. I can, uh, without wanting to get too technical, here I can, let's well, that's not now, still trying to get all the pieces and parts, but I can put anything back there. I can put a brick wall back there. Uh, I can put, why okay, sorry. I don't wanna get too distracted by the technology. But I kinda like this scene. One thing that you haven't seen yet, which you'll probably come to know and love, and I wanna introduce you Maddie's Drone World. He nailed it. "Spank is missing," he says. You see that in the chat? "Spank is missing." Well, everybody, let me introduce you to Spank, the monkey. Spanky is my sidekick. I like monkeys. I get a lot of my inspiration about behavior and evolution from our closest animal relatives, which are the apes and chimpanzees. And we split off from them about 8, 9 million years ago. And they went on their merry way and continued to evolve as apes and monkeys, and the humans, because of tons of different factors of changing geology and weather, and went on to evolve to be humans, and the modern humans that we are descendants of, Homo naledi, Homo erectus, Homo, uh, all the homos. I used to be able to rattle them all off, but Homo egaster, there's a bunch of them. But over the past 3.5 million years, and 3.5 million years ago, physically and even brain power, we were very similar. We were very similar. And but Spanky. I found him. He's of course he's virtual, and he's my buddy, and he just sits there and looks around, and everybody always got a big kick out of Spank. So I don't know if Spank is going to become a permanent part of my live streams or not. It depends. Let me know if you think it's cute and you like it, or you think it's stupid and childish. Let me know. There you go. RJS says happy to see Spank. Yeah, everybody loved the monkey, and I had um, there he is. I don't want this to get too gimmicky, though. You know, I want this to be about not all the flashy gimmicks and stuff like that. Uh, I guess many of you have watched Bart K, and Bart likes this OBS stuff, and the flashy graphics and all that stuff. And he's got his sidekick, Yellow Ted. So I figure Bart K, he's a pretty smart guy. If Bart K can have a sidekick, I can too. I I did a funny thing with Spank last year or 2 years ago. We had they had landed on Mars. Okay, so if and all my old drone videos are still on this channel. They're still back there. If you go searching back far enough, you'll find every video I made for the past 5 years. And one of the videos, including all the live streams, one of the videos, I said, proof that there's life on Mars. So I went and grabbed a video of the Martian landscape taken from the rover, and I stuck Spank out there on a rock. And as the thing was panning by, there's Spank sitting out on the rock there on Mars. And nobody even laughed. I didn't get much comment on it, but I thought it was a funny idea. Any other questions about anything other than where's Spank? I can stop talking for a second while I read the chat. You guys aren't going to get bored, are you? Wow, been at this for a whole hour already. The chat's not going by as fast as I thought it would. I thought this thing would just be flying. We got 112 people in here, which is quite a good crowd. Keep all the gimmicks. They work, Time Traveler says. Yes, Bankasilian Child is so cool. He fits in perfectly with the rest of us. Hey, Anthony Mason said that. Yeah. Thank you, Anthony. I like that. I hope I didn't get too philosophical and get in too much in the weeds with all you here for this first live stream, but I just will feel a lot better when people get to know me better, and, I think this is a good way of doing it. Maddie's Drone World, good seeing you live again, Mitch, although it's not drones anymore. Yeah, the thing that happened in the drone community, unfortunately, was the federal government. The federal government decided that the FAA needed to license. They were worried about drones crashing into airplanes, and they came up with new drone laws, which require all kinds of crazy stuff, and they're actually going into effect next month. Real effect, where you need something called remote ID, and it's expensive, it was a pain in the ass, and everybody's been fighting it, and everybody wrote letters, and everybody hired lawyers, and everybody did stuff, and everybody should know that none of that stuff ever means anything. When the government is mandated to do something by Congress, they just do it. They go through the motion of public comment and all that. That's just going through the motions. They ignore everything. Um, they railroaded that thing through. It's stupid, it's useless, but it is destroying the entire model airplane and drone hobby. Being in the drone sphere had a tremendous amount in common with being in the carnivore sphere that you might not think is obvious. Everybody hates you. Everybody thinks you're wrong. Everybody thinks you're dangerous. And that's no different. With the drone sphere, it was, damn drones, you people are always flying over my house, looking, spying on my wife, out by the swimming pool. Uh, those things are dangerous. They're going to crash into airplanes, and it's just one thing after another. One thing, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. It's terrible. Sound familiar? You carnivores are crazy. Meat's going to kill you. We need to kill all the cows, plant more soybeans. It's the same thing. And I don't know if that's just the story of my life. Seems like every time I get involved in something, the world decides that it's a hazard, but it's not a hazard. It's not a hazard. Somebody put in there's been a bunch of questions I haven't answered. I see one there. Question. Okay. Do you subscribe to the theory that to lose weight, you have to limit fat consumption as to focus on burning stored fat? No, no. I think it's exactly the opposite. I think that if you don't eat a high fat diet, you're going to have an awful hard time losing weight. And there's tons of videos out there by Anthony Chafee, uh, Ken Berry, and many others that go through the chemistry of why that is. But until I started cramming myself full of fat, uh, the weight never came off like it did now. So yes, I truly believe that the calories in, calories out method is just nonsense. It can't work. That's a whole 2-hour discussion for another time. Question. Are any of your drone buddies or relatives considering carnivore? Yeah, Carlos is on it now. And Carlos, I told you about, is going to probably become a moderator here, and he'll be sitting in the background to really look at the chats and everything and make sure I don't miss anything. But I had no idea what I might miss tonight. So this is just let's just go on and talk and see what happens. Okay, more questions. Let's see. Question. How does your family feel about the carnivore lifestyle? I've got a daughter. Well, I have nobody living with me. So in that respect, I have without a doubt 100% the best chances of success because nobody around here tells me what I can have and not in the house. And that was a good thing. Um, I have 2 kids that inherited my physiology. Both of them have been fighting, and I hope they don't mind me telling this, and they're probably both watching, but they both followed in my footsteps. Both of them are addicts, carbohydrate addicts, and been fighting it all their lives. They're both in their 50s now, and they both have started carnivore many times and have always, within days or at most a week, their old brain decided, "I need the sugar," and they went off of it. And it's breaking my heart to see both of them struggling just to get started. That may be why I've worked so hard trying to figure out how to help them. And my son is doing much better now. He's doing great. He made one of my chuck roasts today. My daughter had her first colonoscopy today, so we're not talking about diet today, but God bless her, uh, she's a trooper, and she's gonna beat this thing. She's gonna beat this thing. As a parent, you have you walk a it's a double-edged sword. If you keep pushing your kids too much, you'll alienate them. They're gonna say, "Dad, I don't wanna hear that anymore, I'm sorry. If you don't stop telling me that stuff, we're just gonna have to not talk to each other." Now, you don't wanna ever hear that from your kids. On the other hand, if you don't push them at all, they just go about their business, and you have to watch them. You have to watch them get sick, and you have to watch them put on weight, and you have to watch knowing how they feel because you were there. And it's a fine line. It really is, and it's a tough line to walk as a parent, but, I think my daughter's finally got her mindset right, and, uh, that is one of the most important things is definitely getting your mindset right, and there's a lot to that. I put a video out about that, but it didn't do not many people watched it. Well, a couple thousand people did, but not compared to these other videos that I put out. And it is a very important thing, and there are a few very important salient points about what you need to do to succeed on this lifestyle, and it can be derailed so easily. Okay, question from, Ming Key 27. Thank you for the question. Do you practice intermittent fasting? I I do. I started out consciously saying, "I'm gonna eat in a 4 to 5 hour window every day," and I did. I eat 2 meals a day. So, if I eat the first meal at 10 in the morning, I would finish no later than 3 for the second meal. And I started doing that, I actually was consciously doing I was looking at the clock, and it worked great. I was getting a 19, 20-hour fast every day. Uh, I wasn't even trying to lose weight. My body weight just normalized. I kept losing weight, and I'm saying, "Holy cow, I'm 155 pounds, and holy cow, I'm 150 pounds, and holy cow, I'm 145 pounds." But I still had a little fat in the middle, and then the next thing I know, I'm 140 pounds, and I've been there for between 140 and 144, and I've been there for like 5 months now. So I said, "Well, this must be where my body wants to be." This morning I weighed 140 pounds. I intermittent fast, but I do it as a matter of routine now without even thinking about it. I just eat when I'm hungry, and it just so happens that I usually, if I'm gonna eat, I get hungry about 10 in the morning, and I could go without anything else, but I absolutely want to make sure I eat enough food, and that's another mistake people make on this lifestyle here, is you're just not hungry as hungry much, and to try to eat I did OMAD for about a month. Problem was to stuff 2,000 calories down your throat in one meal, that's just a lot of eating. So I decided to split it up into 2 meals. I've done a couple of short fasts, like 1 day, 48 hours. Uh, I could drop 2 or 3 pounds, but you'll put it back on afterwards. I don't know that fasting is for me, uh, other than for the autophagy benefits of it, and, I'm assuming that most of you that are watching me here have watched hundreds of other videos from all the big, uh, influencers like Ken Berry and Anthony Chafee, Sean Baker. These guys are great. These guys are what they're doing, and the fact that I can tell people now I eat a carnivore lifestyle, and they actually know what I'm talking about. 3 years ago, they would look at you like, "What's that?" People knew what keto was, but they had no but Sean Baker wrote the book about carnivore and effectively coined the phrase carnivore diet. So we can thank Sean. And Sean puts out 2, 3 videos every day. I mean, he's a prolific guy. I'm sure he has a staff of people helping him. So does Ken Berry. They have to have staffs. They can't keep up with millions of subscribers and all of the live streams and the private communities and everything they have without some help. But it becomes a big business. And I got news for you. Everybody who does this and everybody who puts themselves out there and risks their reputation and risks people coming after them, if they make any money at it, more power to them. They're entitled to. They're certainly entitled to. Um, what else we got? Any more questions in here? Everybody saying hi to each other. Looks like all my drone buddies are getting reacquainted here. Okay, Amy Schaefer says, "Do you recommend starting keto first, then progressing to carnivore, or going straight into carnivore?" You know, that's a great question. That's a great question, Amy. And there's no right answer to that question because that question depends on who it is and what their habits are and whether they're able to go right into carnivore and whether they have a lot of, they're so far down the rabbit hole of chronic illness that they may have to wean themselves into it. So this is something everybody has to answer for themselves. Nobody is going to be harmed by going on a ketogenic diet. I mean, I don't care who it is. If you can go on a ketogenic diet and not binge and not fail and not cheat, then that's going to be a great diet for you. And if you can do that, that may be all you need to do. Maybe you don't need carnivore. Carnivore, for me, was the first diet that really just made my addiction vanish. It's out of my life. It's out of my mind. Keto never did that because I was still always thinking about, oh God, I got 20 carbs that I can eat today. I saw a recipe for some keto pizza crust. Maybe I should do that. I was still in the variety mindset. I was still trying to live the standard American diet life with substitute foods. And that's the worst idea on the planet. And that's another one of the rules that I put out there was do not under any circumstances try to eat keto or carnivore versions of foods you're addicted to. You effectively are teasing that beast within you. You're teasing him, and he's going to get even with you. You're saying to that beast, we're going to have pizza. You know how good that is. And then you feed him this imitation pizza that doesn't have all the stuff that your physiology, your biology associated with pizza. The sugar isn't there. The flour isn't there. The starches aren't there. It's not pizza. It's something that might taste like pizza, but it's not. It's not. And it will trigger your addictions faster than anything. And that's a rabbit hole. And that's why everybody who knows anything in this space always says, do not buy any box of anything that says keto on it, because you're just saying, okay, time for me to get off of this diet now and gain 10 pounds. You can't do that to yourself. You can't. And artificial sweeteners are still bad for you for the simple reason that the sweet taste triggers something called the cephalic phase response. And what that means is that it triggers anticipatory measures in your body to deal with stuff that's coming in the very near future. You can have a cephalic phase response by walking by a bakery and have your pancreas squirt a bunch of insulin into your bloodstream because your body thinks it's going to get sugar when you smell it. When you taste the drink with artificial sweeteners, your body thinks sugar's coming. So what happens? You get a cephalic phase response. Your pancreas squirts preloads insulin into your bloodstream. What does insulin do? Insulin has many jobs, but the main jobs of insulin is to get sugar into the cells. The main job is get it out of the bloodstream. So it does that by getting it into the cells of your body, which effectively lowers your blood sugar. And insulin's job is to shut the door to your fat cells so that fat can't get out. So you've got a doorman or a gatekeeper on your fat cells that when it sees insulin, it says to the fat in your fat cells, not you're not going anywhere until this insulin level drops. Because there's energy coming in now. We're in storage mode. We're cramming as much of this stuff as we can into the cells. And then what happens? The insulin's out there, it's doing its job. And then all of a sudden, it's looking around. You know, your body's going, where's the sugar? I thought, where's the sugar? We just took every bit of sugar we could out of your bloodstream, which can make you hypoglycemic, and you can die from that, in preparation for a load of sugar that we were sure is coming because it sure tasted sweet. And then there's no sugar. And now you're sitting there with dramatically low blood sugar. And what does low blood sugar do to you? You start craving sugar. And off you go. So, no, the diet soda has no calories. But you drink enough of that stuff and you happen to be in the right state, it's almost like drinking liquid addiction. You're setting your chemistry up to make you need sugar. Like a diabetic, when they get near hypoglycemic, they're always told, oh, have sugar, have a candy bar with you at all times. Well, you don't want to get that way. I always drank diet soda. I drank tons of diet soda, and I don't know if that's what was really screwing me up or not, but might have been. Anyway, I don't drink that anymore. I do drink. I buy this Dr. Berg's electrolyte mix, and the reason, and I'm not a Dr. Berg fan. I don't want to say anything good or bad about him, but I don't follow him or listen to much of his advice. But this product that he has, of all the ones I've seen out there, Element and the rest, it has a big chunk of potassium in it. It has 1,000 milligrams of potassium, which, coupled with the bacon I eat, which has a lot of potassium, and the steaks and other things, I'm sure I'm getting more than my share of potassium. I get my magnesium from a capsule. I take one of them a day, 400 milligrams, sometimes two. And salt, I get more salt than I need just from the food I eat. And there's some salt in the electrolyte drink. But this has stevia in it, and it's got a slight, not sickening sweet, but it's tasty. And I was hesitant to start it because I didn't know if it was going to trigger an addiction for me. So I thought I'd try it, and my daughter's using it, and it didn't trigger any addictions, and it didn't. You know, there's not enough stevia in there to start any cephalic phase response in me, and it's a tasty little drink. I dilute it down much more than they say. I take this thing right here, this big, humongous thing. I put ice in it, and I use the San Pellegrino, and I'll sip on it, and I drink my coffee, which, you know, hardcore carnivores say is no good for you either. Let me see if I missed any other questions. Did I answer that last question? Let's see. Carton sugar put away. Just bought it. Watch out. Milk has lactose. That's true. Skim milk is worse. Yeah. That's another thing, is you want to eat fat. Okay. Craig Smith asked me, hey, Craig, how are you? Craig is one of my prolific commenters. Good to see you, man. What kind of pilot were you? When did you retire? I was not. The only flying commercially that I did was back in the early 1970s when I was a flight instructor up in Manassas, Virginia. I taught flying back then. I've always been other than that, I've always owned my own airplanes, and I've done a lot of flying. I have a commercial ticket. I have an instrument rating, multi-engine. I've owned few multi-engine airplanes, a Beech Baron, Cessna 310, and I just flew places. I just love aviation. My hobby was always model aviation. I flew turbine powered model jet airplanes in international competitions. I just love that stuff. Uh, I should have been born a bird, but I started out in aviation with the goal of becoming an airline pilot. But as so often happened in my life, I was always at the right place at the wrong time. And in the early 70s, there was a terrible recession. The Vietnam pilots were flooding the market, guys with tens of thousands of hours of heavy turbine experience, and I'm competing with them for an airline job. No, so I never did get the airline job, and that was the end of it. But I did continue to fly my whole life, and uh, I sold my last airplane over 10 years ago, and it's one of those things. Been there, done that. I got to the point where I had airplanes sitting in a hangar, and they were more of a pain of maintenance and everything, and I just you just stop doing it. So that's how that happened. But that's why I love things that fly, and that's why I got so hooked by these drones. With the drones, for those people that are carnivores, with the drones, you put goggles on, and there's a camera in the drone, and you grab a hold of the transmitter, and for all intents and purposes, you're seeing from the drone. It's very immersive, and you're flying under the trees and around, and it's as close to really flying in an airplane as you can imagine. Question: what was my occupation? When? Oh man, that's a great question. That's a great question, Craig. Um, I have been in the swimming pool. I'm a licensed general contractor. In the 90s and 1970s and 80s, I was a builder. In the 70s, I was building swimming pools. I became a home builder in the Orlando area in the mid 80s in an area called Lake Mary and Heathrow, which was an upscale development where we were building $1 million spec houses. And I had three of them sitting there. And if you remember the 80s, the housing market crashed, the savings and loan scandal hit, the real estate market went to crap, and Mitch went broke. Wrong place, right time, wrong place. Again, couldn't sell the houses that I had, and me and every other builder up there. Uh, we were all into the banks for millions and millions of dollars, and can I say, I just went under, and I climbed out of the hole. And my interest in technology, here comes my life story. My interest in technology, back at the time when personal computers were just starting, okay, I decided that I was going to build these IBM clones and sell them to people, because I could go to the store and buy motherboards and cases and memory chips and processors and all that stuff. I had in the military, that's what I did. I was a technical electronics technician, and worked on some pretty sophisticated stuff. And I know electronics. I mean, I really know electronics. And so I was out of my bedroom in my house. I run a classified ad in the paper that they let you run three lines for 3 days for $10. And I would say IBM 286 clone, so much memory, such, this size hard drive, $3,000. Now it sounds crazy today, but back then, if you went into computer land, that same IBM computer cost $6,000. So I basically effectively could give them the same computer with pretty much the same components for half the money. And I started selling them. And I started selling them. and it got nuts because the people would read my ad. They'd come. I sell them the computer. It was great. I knew how to build them, and I took care of my customers. They never had a problem, and I fixed everything. And uh, then some of these customers happened to work for some bigger companies. Next thing I know, I get a call from my company needs some computers. Uh, we need 100 computers. Can you do that? And you had to know me back then. The answer was no problem. Piece of cake, no problem. I can do that. I can do that. Next thing I know, 1 year later, I had rented half of a small office building. I had 10 employees. I had a shop. I was selling computers to government agencies, school systems, cities and municipalities. I grew that company to be it was a big company in Central Florida. I had 13 counties in Central Florida, and I did all the network infrastructure back when the internet was first starting. We actually were an ISP. We hosted the websites for a lot of these organizations, public records, which was way back when that was just beginning to come online. We did the network wiring for whole school districts back when the federal government raised the tax on your telephone bill to pay for it, and things were flying. And I mean, it was a great life. I loved the life I had. I made a ton of money. I'm not bragging. This is just who I am. I had a 53-foot Hatteras yacht sitting in the water in Daytona Beach. I had a Rolls Royce in the garage. I had 4 motorcycles. I had airplanes, twin engine Beach Barons sitting in a hangar. I had more crap to look after that I knew what to do with. And I still wasn't really a happy guy. But I had all the toys that I thought would make me happy, and none of that shit made me as happy as I am right now, if you can believe that. And I went through that. I went through, I had a first marriage, and then I had my second marriage, and that when the money, and what happened in my computer business is a lesson for anybody, and that was don't believe anything that they promise you. We were doing so much business with the school districts that Hewlett Packard and Dell wanted our business. And they started pulling strings and spending money and pulling political nonsense to try to sway the school boards to go with not Hewlett Packard, but Compaq, go with Compaq computers. And they actually got most of these school boards to pass a rule that said the only people they could buy computers from was what they call a tier 1 company. And that's a big national company like Dell or Compaq back then. So I did an end run around that rule, and I became a Compaq partner. And I basically turned all of my hard fought customers over to Compaq as what they call an education partner, and ran that way for a couple of years. And one of the benefits of running that way was that I didn't have to build the computers anymore. I didn't have to buy $5 million worth of pieces and parts and have 50 guys in the shop assembling them. All I did was take an order, tell Compaq they need 500 of these and 1,000 of those. And then they would come, and my guys would go out and set them up and image the hard drives and get them ready to go, set up the networks, basically turn the school on. And then Compaq would pay me a 15% commission. So I would get a huge check from Compaq without having to spend any money, have any accounts receivable or anything. So I liked it. I thought, oh, this is even easier than what I had before. And then in the late 1990s, like 1999, 2000, 2001, I don't even like to think about it anymore. Hewlett Packard comes along with Carly Fiorina, and they buy Compaq computers. They bought them. Compaq was now Hewlett-Packard. Hewlett-Packard doesn't have the same kind of education partnership that Compaq had. They deal direct with all of those big customers. Well, what happens to Mitch? Sorry, Mitch, we don't need you anymore, but I got a contract. Well, so sue us, they say. And right then and there, I'm done. I am out. My company is, I lost all my customers in a period of 6 months. They stole everything I'd built over a 20-year period. And they promised me that would never happen. That's why I said, don't ever, when somebody tells you something will never happen, don't believe them. And then I got the add insult to injury when I started trying to make noise about it. I got the old, I don't know why you're upset, Mitch. This isn't personal. It's just business. So I went completely broke again. I tried to run the company for a couple of years after that, but once you establish a niche, which I had in education, you can't just, especially in the climate then, around the early 2000s, where Best Buy and everybody else is selling computers and Amazon's there, and you can't build up what I had built up. Was customer loyalty, and the service end of the thing. Providing the hardware was just part of the service. Anyway, that went away. So here I am again. Building business gone, computer business gone. I'm in my mid-50s, and I'm saying to myself, well, now what the hell am I going to do? I got this big ass house. I got airplanes. I got a boat. I got a wife who just loves this lifestyle. What am I going to do now? And I picked myself back up, and I built a business plan based on a friend of mine who had a chain of restaurants. A couple of restaurants down in Fort Myers called Grouper and Chips. It was a fish and chips place. And he was a flying buddy of mine. We flew model jets together. I said, there's nothing like your restaurant up in Orlando. I used to drive to Naples just to eat in his restaurant. It was so good. They had the crab cakes and sauteed grouper with a beurre blanc sauce over fettuccine. They had the best grouper sandwich you ever had in your life. Soups were unbelievable. It was a tremendous little restaurant, and he was doing really well with it. I said, why don't we open up a chain of 10 of these restaurants in Orlando? And I told them what we could do. I said, I think they'd go over well. And I figured for me, it would be a 5-year plan. I would open up 10 restaurants in 5 years, get them built, get them up and running, get them making money. And then I would just sell off the whole mess for a bunch of money and retire. So this was in 2004, 2005. So I go to the biggest developer of commercial real estate in Orlando, and a company called Unicorp, and all the big shopping centers, the Disney Celebration downtown. They built all that stuff. I mean, these guys and they had the best shopping centers and strip centers. So you can't just walk in and say, I want to rent a restaurant. You got to do this well in advance, because they're, everything they got now is being built, has been spoken for years ago. So they had a new development that was an up and coming place in Orlando called Baldwin Park. They had a lakefront location for a restaurant there that I thought would be great. The plans for that place were Walt Disney World like, gorgeous downtown area with multi-level parking and lakefront gazebos. And I mean, it was just, and I was going to have a little 40 or 50 seat fish and chips joint in there. I was going to, and that would be my showcase restaurant. And off of that, I would build these next 9 or, of them over 5 years. And my partner, he was the cook. I didn't know anything about a restaurant business. I knew how to, I knew real estate. I knew building. I knew how to, I could build the restaurant, get them built and get them running, but he needed to, I don't know how to cook fish at the time. So we got to, I put down money for the first one. I secured a second location for a year later that was in the west part of Orlando. put down a down payment on that, signed lease contracts for ridiculous amounts of money that I was obligated to. And all of a sudden, the construction on the restaurant for my first restaurant came to a screeching halt. I mean, I'm already uh, starting to build out the interior of the restaurant, put the kitchen in, do all that stuff, putting all the expensive, range hoods and kitchen equipment in. And all of a sudden, this company that I leased it from decides to sell the whole mess to some real estate trust in California. All of a sudden, I got a new landlord, and the construction came to a halt, and I sat in my half-built restaurant for a year and a half with in a half-built restaurant with no nothing, just a kitchen that I just got done spending a fortune on. And finally, they got around to in 2007. They finally got around to starting to get it done, and they did get it done in 2007. And I finally managed to get the restaurant open. And then 2008 came along with the real estate crash and the economy crash, and I managed to run that restaurant with no customers, no parking, because they never built the parking garage. Uh, I kept screaming at the guy that leased me the space. He says, "Well, we don't own that anymore. You need to take it up with the people in California." The people in California, they're in California. I don't know. I can say anything more than that. But needless to say, after 2 years of running that restaurant, losing money, we finally had to close that down. The second restaurant that I had leased, Unicorp, the company that put me in this position, they filed a lawsuit against me for not paying the rent on the second restaurant that I never built when it was their fault. Well, we went back and forth, and I countersued them, and I won, because what they did to me was ridiculous. But it's a crazy world out there. I mean, nobody has any honor anymore. So it's when that restaurant failed, that my marriage failed. I became my marriage failed in 2004, because that's when the computer company went under. But that's when I failed as a human being. And when I put out that video the other day, that the thank you video, where I was talking about how for the last 10 years I had felt irrelevant and depressed, that was on the heels of all of that stuff that I just told you. And I've always tried, I'm the comeback king when it comes to stuff like that. But at my age, in this world, in this economy, with these new rules, I'm just an old elephant. I can't do business like they do business anymore, and I won't. I just won't. So I had elected to become a minimalist. You hear about a lot of these successful people. A lot of times they just walk away from everything, go hang out at a bar in Key West. you know, they drop out, like Jimmy Buffett kind of a person. I finally just decided. I moved over here to Melbourne area in Florida because of my son lives here, and I got and I'm not ashamed to tell anybody. You've seen it in the videos. I live in a manufactured home retirement community. I have what I consider a beautiful home, but it's there's no other way to put this. It's still a trailer park, and I've learned to live without the boats, the airplanes, the big houses, the Rolls Royce. I've learned to live without all that stuff, and I've learned that instead of bringing me happiness, the quest for a superficial, materialistic life full of things that have no meaning other than to make people jealous of you is bullshit. And I started living a minimalist life. I basically live on my Social Security and some work that I do for my daughter's public relations company. I am a web designer and a graphic artist, and I do work for her and get paid very well for it. So, I don't need any charity. No, no, you'll never hear a GoFundMe page coming out of my mouth. Uh, but I've been very content and very happy. Uh, I have my hobby with the model airplanes and the drones, and now I found you guys and this community, and you found me, and that's probably more about me than you ever needed to know. But I told you, before you take my word for anything, I really want you guys to know uh, where I get all this stuff from. And knowing that story, I don't know. Greg asked. Um, Anyway, I have nothing to hide. I mean, I'll tell you guys anything. There's no reason for me to no reason for me to try to make myself out to be anything that I'm not. I've always considered myself a very, very brilliant man. I mean, I know it. I know that I have uh, an off the charts IQ. I figure shit out that nobody else can figure out. I see things. I'm like the guy at the Matrix. People look at the world. I see the stuff the world's made of and how it goes together. When I was in elementary school, I placed among the top 10 children in Philadelphia with the highest IQ. They sent me in the seventh grade to a special school where I was supposed to complete 3 years of junior high school in 1 year. I had to get up early in the morning and get on a bus, then a subway, and then another bus to get to this school clear on the other side of Philadelphia. Um, I couldn't do it. It was too rough on me. So I went back to regular junior high school. But that was, and then my whole school career, I could not sit through school. I learned it faster than they could teach it. I was always ahead of them, and it bored the hell out of me. So I was never an academic. I went to college for 6 months. I said, "This is bullshit." I said, "I'm not learning anything here. I already know what they're trying to teach me. I could teach them." So I've been going through life my whole life that way. Has it been beneficial to me? Probably not. Probably would have been better if I just been just your regular old average Joe, got a job, worked there 30 years, retired, got a golf cart, moved to the villages and, drank a lot. That would be an easier life than what I've had, but I've always had to do everything I do differently than anybody else. I am I don't I'm so outside the box. I don't know where the box even is anymore. And when somebody says, "Hey, Mitch, you're a pretty smart guy," I said, "Oh yeah, I'm smart. I'm so smart that I outsmart myself every turn." And that's been the story of my life. And I found it much easier to just not be involved in all that stuff. That's why I hate social media. I think that we're dealing with transaction loads of information and crap and stuff coming at us from every direction. And I think it's damaging society terribly. I would be more content to be a caveman than I would to have to keep up with all the stuff the young people do these days. I go to the gym and I work out pretty hard for an old guy, and I like to sit in the sauna for 15 minutes. No more 45 minutes in for me. And I've become very cognizant of how I feel and in the heat. And I also make sure I'm always hydrated with electrolytes. So that'll never happen again. And I got to tell you, it took some guts to go back to the same gym where I almost killed myself, but I did. Um, but I'm almost happier. I would almost be happier being a caveman. Life, and I think that there's a lot that we could learn by the primal life that we come from, and I think that that's why getting back to a more primal life is something that you really need to consider. And this makes it easy because when you return your biology to a primal state, your mental state automatically changes. All that stuff just clears up. All the stress stops happening to you. You stop concerning yourself with every crisis video or headline that comes out. You know, every day it's 12 new crises. Uh, and it's killing us. In the gym, I go in the gym, I go into the sauna. Let's say there's 4 guys in there. This is them in the sauna. Got earbuds in their ears. They can't put the friggin' cell phone down for 15 minutes. They're in the gym. Well, you know, I mean, it's crazy. They are connected to the matrix. Their body is in a pod somewhere. That's how their lives, that's how our lives are these days with these cell phones and gadgets. People don't know what toll that's taking on them, and everybody is losing their mind. They're losing their mind because of stress. They're losing their mind because of every day they're told to worry about something else. And the one today, the crisis of the day is that there's a new strain of COVID and we're all going to have lockdowns again. That's the big headlines today. You know, I mean, oh, Christ, give me a break. You know, we fell for that last time. They've already proven that most of it was unnecessary. And for some reason, they decided we need to do that again. As everybody, you know, I got a little clip of it here. I'm going to use it in one of my videos one of these days. It's Bart Simpson laying down, and he says, everybody is stupid except me. I feel that way sometimes. I look around at the world and I say, where everybody's lost their mind. And I have to attribute some of that to the food. How can if the body's being poisoned, how can the brain work properly? If you're losing if your levels of your testosterone and your sexual hormones are half of what they should be because everybody's on a friggin' statin, which is lowering their cholesterol, and cholesterol is a precursor for all the estrogen and testosterone, okay? If everybody's testosterone is so low, is it a stretch to think that all of this transsexual confusion that's happening these days is because the hormonal balance of the younger generation is so screwed up that they don't know what they are anymore? They don't have, and they're open to the manipulation from everybody with an agenda. Okay, having said that, I'm going to say one other thing. I'm never going to. I don't want to go any further than that. One of the rules that I'm going to have, like Ken Berry has for these live streams, is no religion, no politics. Period. No, I don't even want to debate anybody. I've become a lover, not a fighter now. I have had enough conflict you can imagine in my life. I've spent more of my life in courtrooms than I would care to remember. I don't like to argue anymore. If a vegan or a troll comes in here, I will welcome them and thank them for their input. I will not try to change their mind, and I would hope that you guys in the chat wouldn't try to either. You cannot win. You can't win. You be polite to them. If they keep annoying and they become a real pain, then we'll just block them. Period. But I'll give everybody a chance to come in here and give their point of view. I've only got maybe 4 or 5 comments in all the videos I've just posted that were nasty. They were just, you shouldn't be telling people this. You're killing people. The advice you're giving is going to kill people. Okay. All right. Eat vegetables, be happy. I want this community, and I'm hoping not to form a different community, but each of us, if we're going to succeed in this, and I never thought I could, but obviously I must have something. If I haven't screwed it up tonight with this, then we're going to have a nice community. I'm going to do these live streams hopefully once a week, and they're going to be more. We're going to have things that specific things to talk about, maybe a guest. Maybe I would love to have somebody that's had a, like Sean Baker does, somebody that's just really changed their life around. Anybody that wants to be a guest on my thing here, just email me. My email address is oldguycarnivore@gmail.com. One thing I rather you didn't email me would be questions about what should I do, medical questions. Uh, I'm not a consultant, I've gotten a few of them so far, and I've answered them because I always try to be helpful. But I can't imagine that I want my life to be sitting around all day giving people, becoming a personal coach for no and not getting paid for it. I don't want to be a coach. So I'm retired. I want to have some time for myself. So I would appreciate that. I mean, if you want to be a guest here, you got something I need to know, sure, email me anytime. But if you email me saying that I eat this, I eat that, I never can lose weight, my blood pressure is so and so and so and so, I'm probably going to politely email you back and say, sorry, but this is not what I do. And I hope nobody gets offended. Well, we're going on 2 hours already. Wow, 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 wow. I still got 120 people in here. This is crazy. I haven't scared you away yet. My daughter is here. Oh, where are you? Say hi to your daughter already. I haven't been looking. I haven't been watching the chat. Diane, are you there? Hey, baby. I'm trying to find. Oh God, there's so much in the chats here. Well, thanks for telling me, guys. I appreciate it. My daughter Diane, one of two people in my life that mean everything to me. I don't have many people in my life anymore. And my daughter Diane had her first colonoscopy today. Yes, sir. One of those bucket list moments, Oh God. So, if any of you had one of those, I've had 3 of them, and that's the last I'm ever going to have. But she had her first one today. So I don't know whether we're supposed to throw a colonoscopy party or whatever, but I bet you she's glad to get that over with. At any rate, she's in the public relations business in Tampa. She's got a nice little business going, and I do a lot of work for her. I do, and the nice part about that is that there's nobody else that she could get to do her work that cares as much about her as I do. So it gets done, and it gets done on time, and it gets most of the time done right. And I'm glad to help. I'm glad to help her, and it gave me something. It gives me something to do too. Okay, so I don't see her in there, but probably scrolled away. I hope she's still here. I don't know if my son's watching too, but my daughter lives across the state. My son lives here, and it's nice. That's nice. But if you got kids, man, do whatever you can to stay close to them. I had friends. This is interesting. I had my closest friends. One of them was a vegan, and two of my friends, one of them wasn't really a friend, he was an acquaintance. So there's these two guys, know each other, and one of them talked my friend into becoming a vegan years ago, and they followed Furman, they followed Ornish, they followed all these guys that have probably know they're wrong as hell, but their whole career and their living is vested in this wrong theory, and they're dead now. They're gone after terrible illness. And we used to go to a lot of fly-ins and things together, and they would always bring a huge cooler, big Coleman cooler, full of 50 different kinds of fruits and plants and nuts and this and that, nothing but no meat, but just all that crap. And what they went through in a day trying to get the nourishment that they thought they needed was more work than I'd want to do in a week. But they did it and they were religious about it. And I would eat meat. You know, I'd eat chicken, not carnivore, but I still always was a meat eater. And I would get lectures from these guys. You're never gonna, you're never gonna survive. You can't eat that stuff. Dr. Ornish says this and Dr. Furman says that and all that. And they're dead. And I'm not. I can't say I told you so. I wouldn't either because I loved both of those guys. But those were I mean, we're talking about like 30-year friends, lifelong friends that, the guys that you can confide in, that you are like brothers to you. I don't think that being a vegan is the way to go, but you can sure get an argument on that. And I don't want to do that here. I just don't want to do that here. Anything else? I think it's getting to be about time we should wrap this up. I think that I want to hear comments from you. Comment about it. Is this something that's worthwhile to keep? Do you think it's something that's worthwhile to keep doing? I'm not just going to sit there all night, every night and talk about me, but believe it or not, I thought that's what I wanted to get out of the way today. I wanted to try to introduce myself to you and let you know who the hell you're listening to and whether you should take any advice or not. And that's a decision only you can make. I try to say things that only make sense. Sometimes something that makes sense to me doesn't make sense to somebody else. Sometimes there's no right or wrong. There's just one way, one method and another method. And some works for some and some works for another. One thing I don't want to do is I don't want to change. I don't want to change anybody's mind. I don't want to go on a crusade to convert vegans. I don't care about what vegans do. They can do whatever they want as long as they leave me alone and stop trying to take my meat away. And I think the only way we're ever going to stop that kind of stuff is by sheer volume of buyers. And my son and I were talking about that this afternoon. And I said, because he's worried, he said, boy, what's going to happen when we can't get meat? I said, we'll always be able to get meat. What do you mean? I said, meat consumption is going up. I said, I'll tell you what, the day you drive by an Outback Steakhouse and don't see a line out the door, you call me and I'll start worrying. And he laughed. And when you look around and you look at the failure of this horrible plant-based crap that they're trying to pawn off as meat, when you look at the people lining up at all of these meat restaurant chains, whether it be Texas Roadhouse or Outback Steakhouse or any of these places, people in this country are going to get meat. Now, the economy is bad and prices are going up, but there's always meat to be had and there's always ways to eat it that's cheap. And interestingly enough, I know the steaks are getting more expensive, but I only eat 2, maybe 3 tops of those steaks a week. And because I enjoy the hamburger, I enjoy the chucks. I had almost 1.5 pounds of that stuff I cooked in the slow cooker. And that's all I've eaten today. I had one meal today and I am not hungry. I ate about 1.5 pounds of that stuff and that was enough. It was great. I won't eat again until tomorrow. So when you finally get yourself completely fat adapted and your whole personality and habits change because your physiology has done that to you, you'll find you're not spending a lot of money on food because you're just not eating a lot of food. You're not doing like people do and going out and spending $100 at a restaurant every night. You're not. It's very frugal. You can live very frugally, and like Ken says, Ken Berry says, if you have to do nothing but eat Spam and hot dogs, instead of the standard American diet, you're 1,000% better off eating Spam and hot dogs if that's all you can afford, and that's carnivore too. So, I think we're on the right path. Um, I don't see the carnivores dropping dead, do you? Think about that. How many articles have you seen or how many YouTube videos have you seen about this carnivore dropped dead, that carnivore dropped dead, the other I haven't seen any. And if the carnivores aren't dropping dead and they have no real ammunition, how could this be wrong? If we feel as good as we feel when we're on this and we turn our lives around on this, how could that be dangerous when it's not us that are having our feet amputated because we're in severe diabetic, in diabetes. I've watched relatives of mine go out so miserably in this life. I'm not going to let that happen to me. And if I can help it, I'm not going to let it happen to you guys either if you listen to me. So sometimes think of me as a stern uncle who's just, and if you feel like you're really going to fall off, send me an email and say I need some help here. I don't know how to handle this, and I'll be there for you. I just can't give you medical advice, and I can't. I have to be very, very careful that nobody comes back and says, you said this and I did that and this caused this damage and I got this lawyer off of TV and he's going to sue you for everything. We all have to be very careful. We all have to be very careful. So I'll tell you what. Questions, have you tried dry brining? Yes, I do. I do that quite often. In case you don't know what dry brining is, it's when you take a steak, put it on a rack, put some salt on it, leave it in the fridge for an hour or overnight, and the salt soaks into the meat. It's a great thing to do. Some people have tried it for days. Some people think an hour is enough. There's some YouTube channels out there that talk a great deal, have done experiments. There's a guy named Guga, Guga, that has two channels. One of them is Guga Foods, and the other is Sous Vide Everything. And he's down here in South Florida, and he's a big YouTuber. He puts out, he's very prolific, and he does all kinds. I tried soaking a ribeye in Coca-Cola for a month and cooked it, and this is what happened. I mean, he's crazy, but he does all that kind of stuff, and he has a lot of stuff about dry brining on his channel. I see that Bob likes the monkey. Good. Who else we got here? I see Carlos is being very prolific. Please leave a thumbs up for the old guy. Thank you, Carlos. Let's see. YouTube woke me up. Thank you. Do you take electrolytes? Teresa said, yes, I do. I take the Dr. Berg ones, and I take them at least once a day and maybe twice a day. Especially on the days that I work out, I might take a little more. Whether I need all that or not, you have to take a lot of electrolytes before they can hurt you. I mean, if you get excess potassium or you get excess salt, it'll just go out in your urine. You're just not going to have a problem. I'll tell you one thing that this carnivore thing did for me is that it absolutely 100% straightened out my kidneys. A year ago, I had no kidney failure, but I was starting to get bubbles. You can get foam or bubbles in your urine, and that means you're eliminating protein in your urine. That's not a good sign. That's a harbinger of bad things to come as far as kidney disease goes. And at my last test 6 months ago, a urine test had nothing wrong. Everything was perfect. And now I never see any bubbles anymore. Anybody that tells you eating meat's going to hurt your kidneys, eating meat cannot hurt anything. Eating meat is what our machinery is designed. You may as well tell people that using gasoline in their cars is no good. You can't use gasoline in your cars. Well, the cars are built to run on gas. Doesn't matter. Gasoline is bad. You can't use it. You need to use maple syrup in your cars. It just doesn't make any sense. And stuff's got to make sense in this world. If it doesn't make sense, it can't be real. It can't be true. So common sense above all. Common sense above all. Uh, One lemon a day is enough vitamins. You shouldn't eat any vitamin C when you're not eating carbs. I've kind of heard that from a lot of different angles, and I've heard it from Ken Berry. I've heard it from the basically there is some vitamin C in meat. Show me a carnivore that has scurvy. That's Sean Baker's big battle cry. Yeah, where are all these carnivores that have scurvy? There aren't any. None of them do. And I'll tell you why I admire those three: Sean Baker, Anthony Chafee, and Ken Berry. Sean Baker and Anthony Chafee, because they are carnivores to the truest sense of the definition: beef, salt, and water. Anthony Chafee is an amazing guy. Um, and he eats nothing but beef, nothing. And when he does stray, just even the slightest little bit, he says that he's screwed up for 4 days after. Sean Baker, that guy eats beef. He just, and just look at him. He's 56 years old and he's, built like a Sherman tank. I mean, and Ken Berry is almost 100% carnivore, but he's got Nisha there doing all this cooking. And I think he would insult her if he didn't eat some of it. But I think if he was left on his own, he would be eating nothing but beef, salt, and water too. And I see three guys that are physical specimens that everybody should look up to. And none of them are spring chickens anymore. Chafee's the youngest one, but the other two guys are in their 50s. I think Ken Berry's 54. And then along comes me at 76. And I'm trying to show the world that I don't care what you say. Look at me and compare me to any 100 other 76-year-olds that you know and tell me what I'm doing that's so wrong that it's hurting my health. It's nonsense. It just doesn't stand up in the end. So I do take electrolytes. Let's see what else. Let me just take a quick run up the chat here. I still got 100 people watching this thing. For all you drone guys that followed me for years doing these live streams, I hope you can imagine what it's like to have, for me, to have the attention of 100 people on the first live stream by people that really don't know me much, other than I have established myself as the carnivore Martha Stewart. Okay. I am just dynamite in the kitchen. And I thought today, I said, holy cow, my carnivore channel's turning into a cooking channel. But I love doing that stuff. It's a lot of fun. I just do it. I'm not trying to make a big show out of it. I'm just trying to show you what a no-brainer it is, and how easy it is to cook foods where you don't need any extra ingredients. When you think about it, my bacon and eggs had 2 ingredients: bacon and eggs. My crock pot chuck steak or roast, and I'll still talk about the difference between a steak and a roast. I got hell over that. It's not a steak; it's a roast. Same meat, just how you cut it. 1 ingredient, or besides salt, 2 ingredients: beef and salt. The fish, even the fish that I made, I had egg and fish and the pork rind crumbs. It's not a recipe thing. It's just take your basic food, and this is a good way to maybe cook it. And I've got a lot of different things like that, but I can't go on for the next 20 years doing cooking videos. My repertoire of what I eat is only 4 or 5, maybe 6 different foods. So I'll show you how I cook those things. And if I discover other things, then I'll do that too. but we'll see. We'll have to see where it goes. Right now, I'm just kind of flying by the seat of my pants, as the saying goes. All right, guys. God, I hate to shut it. I used to shut it down when everybody went away, but I can't do that now. And I'm hoping that someday I get 1,000 people watching. I'll have to earn that though. And I'll do my best. So everybody, Carlos, thank you for hanging out, looking out for the chat, and we're going to bring you in next week as a helper to help moderate the chat. And thanks to everybody that came. Thanks for putting up with me rambling for 2 hours. I appreciate it. I hope you got to know me a little better, and I hope that in the next 100 live streams that I do, that I can slow down and actually spend time, focus like Ken does, focusing on a question, trying to do that, not talk about me anymore, and get to know you guys a little better from both the comments and the chat here. So you know what I'm going to say. I mean, you know it. Take the rest of the day off. If you knew me, it's a funny. I give everybody the day off. I go to a store when I'm done with the clerk. Take the rest of the day off. I get a smile out of everybody. It's just become my my exit line. So in the drone videos, I used to say, take the rest of the day off and go play with your drone. That was my exit line. My exit line here is take the rest of the day off and eat meat. See you guys next time. I'm tentatively planning next Tuesday at 7:00. And if it's different, I'll post something. Have a great night, guys. Bye-bye.